It was not a Fat John Fabris special.
Dude, I almost
We were not doing directional
you
kicking.
you can't say stuff like that when I'm drinking my water. I almost spit it out of my monitor. Welcome to My God a Podcast. I'm Jim Wood. In this episode, John Powell and I review Georgia's 23-10 loss to Notre Dame in the Sugar Bowl. We talk about our experiences on Saturday and what stood out to us during the game. As always, remember to check out the newly redesigned MyGottaPodcast.com to see our latest merch. And you can follow us on social media at MyGottaPodcast. Finally, if you need help with your website or your online presence, head over to workingwebmedia.com/dogs. Now, let's join the conversation in progress. Hmm. We're back.
We're back with a sigh.
Ah, tough pill to swallow. Tough pill to swallow. Um, all the way around. All the way around. So much. We're recording this kind of late. So much has happened. Uh, on and off the field. Feel like we kind of have to start just unreal set of circumstances down in New Orleans with the attack on New Year's Eve / New Year's Day. Um, we know a bunch of people that were there. A friend of the show, Tim Riley, was like right there with his family. So just thankful that those that we knew they were down there were safe. I know many were not as fortunate. So just kind of surreal as that unfolded, and ultimately the game was moved. So, but thoughts and prayers with the city of New Orleans and everyone down there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's probably a good place to start for sure. Just so much wrapped up in those couple of days, right?
Yeah,
You had the terrorist attack, and then the news came out after the game that, you know, Sonny Smart, we knew that he fell, and I know that I personally like didn't realize that it was as serious as it was, but apparently the even during the game, Kirby kind of had an understanding that his dad was going to be um departing home, so to
yeah,
speak.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I don't know how there's just so much wrapped up in what Kirby Smart has have had to deal with in the matter of 48 hours. And frankly, what he's had to deal with, just as a person in the after in the days after. Um, he's managing rosters, he's managing transfers, he's managing NIL deals on people transferring in and dealing with NFL drafts. Like, you know, I think that there's been, a lot of speculation about the coaching staff. So he's dealing with a lot of the noise that I'm assuming and then also, by the way, he's having to deal with his, you know, trying to put his dad's affairs in order and lay his father to rest. So just speaks to the professionalism of Kirby and everyone around him at the university. So,
yeah.
um, yeah, there's just a lot going on, and then obviously the terrorist attacks. I think that the university ended up mentioning that a student actually was among the victims, right?
I haven't heard an update. I know there was a student that was in the hospital that was injured. And I remember a critical condition, but I never heard an update. So I don't know. Hopefully that situation is improved, but I do not know. I have not heard an update.
Yeah, just terrible.
Yeah. Yeah, it was
And then we
wild.
had a game, and then we had a game we had to play the next day.
Yeah, I mean, and
Game got delayed, and the vibes were low.
yeah, it definitely felt weird. It felt weird that day, all day. It kind of took half the day. I think, I would say it was the right decision to move it. I don't think anyone's really questioning that. But yeah, it was definitely, it was interesting. It was wild. Um,
Yeah,
Everything was thrown off. I mean, between that, I don't know how Kirby was able to coach the game between that and his dad. That's wild. I don't know for me, like after it was over and we were talking about like when are we going to record this? Like I was just kind of like, ugh, like I'm not ready to talk about it yet. Like there, I was like in the grand scheme of things, like I'm glad people are okay. Like I don't know, it was just very weird for me, uh, coming out of that game. So,
Yeah.
but
I would have to say that I guess technically that was the first our first foray into playing on a Thursday. I don't know. Is that the first time that we've played on a Thursday? Um
uh,
I don't know how the math checks out on that,
I
but
would imagine we played on a Thursday on like New Year's Day being on a Thursday or whatever, but like it being
a work day.
a work day, like that was weird. I definitely got like there were like definitely jokes like the first meeting I went to in the morning and was like, "Oh, you're here today? I figured you were just gonna take
I,
off.
I s-
Was Georgia playing?"
I switched my background to UGA that day, and I definitely got comments for it because I mean, man, 10 out of 10 do not recommend having a major college football game on one of the first days back from a 2 week
I
layoff.
know, right? Yeah, that was weird. That was weird. Thankfully, I just kind of was like, yeah, like I'm here this morning, and I was like, I'll definitely be gone, for the game. So, um, worked out, but was still odd. Had already done the pregame run, New Year's Day. We didn't know, um,
Yeah,
all that. It was interesting. So
yeah. I told I talked a lot I talked a big game about being able to do the pregame run 2 days in a row, but it became very very quickly unrealistic as my day just imploded from work.
yeah,
Yeah. I
yeah.
think I even had like a call that was scheduled for the kickoff time, and I ended up moving it to the next day, but I was so frustrated that the game was on
I
Thursday.
remember you saying that you had a call.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We Kim and I did manage to do. We did redo our pregame run, like basically like at lunch on the second, but it was much shorter um, than our New Year's Day run. So, but yeah, and we had known we came into our game. We would have anyways. We would have known all the other results, but it also being a day later. And unfortunately, the trend that had started stayed true with us in that every team that got a bye lost in this inaugural 12-team playoff. Um, Still think that's kind of weird. Although I think Kirby pointed out like, well, two of those teams were better anyway. In Penn State and Texas, but I don't know. I expect we can talk about this later, but
Yeah,
I'm
I was about to
already
say
anticipating changes. But we'll see.
we should we should probably save that for the season review, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. But as far as the Sugar Bowl goes, I think that I don't know. I never got confirmation. I guess that both teams were quarantined or held to their hotels
I
during that time period. I think that was like a question because at the time we were getting reports that UGA was being sheltered in place, and we were wondering what the impacts were on prep and if Notre Dame had the same restraints. I never saw a confirmation that Notre Dame was.
I saw. I was watching. Like I was trying to figure out like even like pregame, like because like you can't watch game day. Game day was yesterday. Like,
Yeah, that was
um,
awful too. That was another thing that I did not appreciate.
so I ended up like I just turned on ESPN because that's the channel the game was gonna be on, and like the guide said it was like NBA countdown or NBA some kind of NBA show, and it wasn't. It was like a special Sports Center. And so they had kind of a pregame on there at least.
Hmm.
And I do remember from there, I think it was Laura Rutledge. She was doing a lot of reporting from New Orleans. She said that like yes, both teams were like sheltering in place. Notre Dame actually never even went. Like Georgia ended up in the evening, early evening, I think, late afternoon, early evening on New Year's Day, going over for a walkthrough at the Superdome.
Mhm.
And Notre Dame didn't. They did their walkthrough like in their team, like in some like ballroom at their hotel or something like that. They never went over there. So that's from what
Interesting.
I know. Yeah, yeah.
That is actually an interesting approach.
I guess it worked. Maybe we
Yeah, yeah.
maybe we should.
Maybe we need to do walkthroughs at the hotel.
Yeah.
Oh man,
But I will say, I guess we can talk about the game. Um, the game itself, like
it
it,
ultimately came down to two plays.
it came down. Well, it came down to 17 points in 54 seconds. Seven.
Yeah,
You that's hard to overcome. Um, I will say like it felt off. First play of the game, it felt off to me. Like we ran that toss sweep, the first play of the game. They chased it down. We missed multiple blocks after. I have not rewatched the game, but I've looked at that play, and like we had multiple guys just totally whiff on blocks, and
Yeah.
ETN got eaten up, and I was just kind of like, ugh, suboptimal start. Um, you know, what would we get 3 out, 3 and out and punt? I think right, but then they
Yeah.
didn't really do anything either. Shoot, their first play of the game, Riley Leonard tried to throw 2 forward passes. Can't do that, young man. Uh,
I mean, welcome to how I felt the entire game. Like,
yeah.
I guess that, you talked about 17 points in 54 seconds. Like that literally was the game. But
Yeah.
if you were to take a step back and you know me, I like to play the game. If I had told you before the game
Oh my
that
gosh.
Gunnar Stockton was going to go 20 for 32 for 234 yards, 1 touchdown, and 0 interceptions.
I would have said
I would have
how much did we win by?
I would have said exactly. But then you follow it up with Georgia's going to rush 29 times for 62 yards.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is still not ideal. That does not
No.
spark joy
N-
to quote our friends.
no,
Um,
but then you can flip it over and say Notre Dame is going to run one play inside of Georgia's red zone.
yeah, yeah, no, exactly. I mean, but then you look at the flip side. If I had told you before the game that Riley Leonard was going to go 15 for 24 and for 90 yards.
Yeah.
Like that stat line would not be ecstatic for them.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I mean, we were worried about him. Everybody was worried about him as a runner. Other than one play, I think it was for 30 yards he ran for one play.
Hmm.
He's only had 50 yards.
Yeah. It was the
He had a 32 yard run where he kind of like again, like I said on the podcast, like the pregame, um, you know, he they parted the waves and no one was there and he just took off running. It wasn't like a design run or anything like that. He just
yeah.
kind of took off running and took advantage of an open field.
When they were doing the design runs, it was for short yardage. It was volume, right? It wasn't he wasn't ripping off long chunk runs. It was the short volume runs. He was the leading rusher,
Yeah,
for
he ran for 80 yards.
80 yards, 91 total with then 11 lost on negative plays. Um, yeah, and that was the thing. Like, and I'll say that something that you texted. I don't know, either me or one of our threads during the game. You're like, man, are we really going to waste like an all-time defensive performance? Um, which was frustrating because the defense. I mean, the defense basically you could say held them to 9 points, like the 3 field goals. The one touchdown.
They didn't score an offensive touchdown. Well,
Well,
I mean, they
yeah,
did, but it was a short field, one play.
on a short field and one play coming off that sack fumble. And that was the only play they ran from our red zone. By the way, they never entered the red zone via their offense. That is crazy to me. Um, that is wild to me that happened in a game that Georgia lost. You're looking at like kind of how we picked the game. We were similar like in points, but if what's crazy is if we had scored as many points as we thought we were gonna, you had 35 to 26. I had 24 to 21. I mean, even 24 points would have won the game. I did not have Georgia only scoring 10 points on my bingo card. Um, that was frustrating.
Yeah, so Notre Dame was missing their number one lineman, and it didn't actually look like that they were missing their number one defensive lineman. Um,
Yeah.
they pressured the hell out of us all game long. They had a good game plan once the game kind of was underway and you could see like they basically were saying, "Hey, Gunner Stockton, we're gonna make you beat us." Which if you're the opposing team, that's probably a fair strategy. Like,
Yeah.
but he answered that call pretty well. I don't think that there's a whole lot. I think at one point in the first half, ESPN threw up a stat that showcased that Gunner was like perfect. Like he
Yeah.
was like 9 for 9 or something like that. And I remember thinking to myself, like, holy crap, like I did not see that coming. And good Lord, he connected on a bomb to Arian Smith,
Mm, yeah.
which Carson Beck, it took him 3 years to figure out how to do something like that. And Gunner goes out and does it in his first start against the one of the top defenses in the country. Number seven team in the country. Um, yeah, Gunner Stockton did everything right in this game. I think that there are a couple of if I could nitpick him a little bit, I think that he very much like what we've seen from Beck this season, um, was found himself in situations where he should have stepped up in the pocket, like the strip fumble.
Hmm.
I think that if he steps up into the pocket, he's got to feel, he's got to get a feel for how his offensive line is performing and where his offensive line is on the field. When your left tackle is getting worked and he's getting run around, like you just have to anticipate that when he disappears from your field of view, that you've got to step up in the pocket because that defensive lineman is pretty much right behind you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened to Carson Beck too. Um, the other couple nitpicky things that I would say about Gunner, I was a little surprised at how I was expecting him to be able to throw the ball on the run better than he did. And I'm sure that some of that's going to come with time and reps in game, like, full speed,
Hmm.
not playing ones versus twos or whatever. But I thought that him, I thought that rolling the pocket would be more effective than it actually was, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, it felt like we didn't do it as much as I thought we would, but maybe that was due to
The
how
fact
it
that
was
the
working.
offensive line was getting absolutely housed.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, and to your like him, I feel like the him being able to sense the rush and get a feel for that stuff. I think that's just due to lack of playing time and lack of experience. I think that thing would come over time. I would think, but in his first start, I'm not totally shocked. And I will say, and I don't want to go on the like blame Bobo train. I'm not gonna do that, but I will say, like on that call, that led to the sack fumble, like we put Freeling in a one-on-one situation where he's been getting beat multiple times that half, and we do a drop back play action deep shot and don't give him any help. Like we don't have a tight end over there helping him. We don't have ETN helping him chip the guy. We just let him go out there one on one, and he got beat, and he'd been getting beat. Um, and then I mean, ultimately they moved him. They started shifting the line around and put someone else out there. So not a fan of the play call. I think Kirby said, hindsight 2020, good get to the halftime, you're down 63, 6-3, in the moment, be aggressive. I get it. I'm not gonna fault that. I do think the play call was suspect, including the play design of not helping out your left tackle who's already struggling.
The protection.
Yeah. Yeah.
And speaking of protections and pre snap reads, maybe you know, I think I was texting the thread about, there were a couple of plays where it seemed as though the offensive line was a little confused because they were like turning around and looking at him a couple of times, and
Hmm.
then those ended up being plays that like we got blown up on.
Yeah.
Um, there were also some plays where we would run the ball into the teeth of the defense, kind of thing. Like I think I messaged you guys like we've got to be able to check out of some of these plays because
Yeah.
there were multiple instances where it was very clear that they were just going to sell out for the run, and we had ourselves in a run fit and didn't have the right protections.
Yeah, and I think that's the so to me like it's that stuff like that is the difference between a guy in his
Yep.
first start and Carson Beck.
Right.
And like I
Right.
totally agree. Like Gunner, you look at his stat line, like he went over on coaches over unders, for passing yards, stuff like that. Like had a good stat line, and I think he played well. But I think like I don't have any, I don't want to say like negative things about him. I do. I think the difference that is the difference though of like it allowed Notre Dame to have a different game plan because they didn't have to game plan for Carson Beck. They were able to do what you're saying, like, hey, we're gonna dare Gunner to throw, like we're gonna take away your run. If Carson's in there, I don't think they're able to do that. I don't think that would have been their strategy. I don't think their strategy would have been we're going to make Carson Beck beat us because they know what he can do there. I do think that would have potentially helped the run game with the backs. I mean, who knows? We'll never know. But that's just my gut feeling. And then, like you said, the checking out of the place, checking and even maybe rearranging the protection. Helping the line, identify certain guys or whatever. Who knows?
I mean, he did a good job of spreading the ball around. He had seven different receivers had more than one catch. I will say that Arian Smith with his one catch for 67 yards. Okay, this is where I'm gonna go Bobo bashing, and I'm gonna make myself angry all over again.
Okay.
Um, this feels like a situation like what Ohio State experienced when they lost to Michigan, where they didn't use their best talent on the field. Arian
Mm.
Smith had one reception for 67 yards. Like, to me, based on how he was breaking free and what his skill set does, I feel like that was we underutilized him. And Chip Kelly in the loss to Michigan basically said that he recognizes that he had a Jeremiah Smith out there and he didn't work to get him the ball. And then that's where he pivoted his offense and was able to leverage the strengths that his offense has and maximize it as best as possible. That is probably one of the biggest issues that I have with how this game panned out. Um, you know, I'm glad that Delp had a catch. I mean, according to the chart, which I didn't realize this until looking at the stats. Like Henry Delp had a couple of receptions. Like what?
Something weird happened with their stats. I'll say that. Something happened
Okay.
like they repeated some names in the stats. I noticed that when I was looking at some stuff up on a website. um, they had Oscar Delp in there twice, and they had Nate Frazier in there twice with like different. They like had their middle names or something. I'm not. It was weird.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't remember that. Maybe is that Lucky? Is that Lucky?
No, it's
Or
Delp. It's Oscar. Is his name is must be Oscar Henry Delp, and they
oh
doubled his stuff and they listed him twice, and they did the same thing with somebody else. I think it was Nate Frazier. I can't remember.
oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, um anyway, yeah, like Lawson Lucky's nowhere on the sheet there. He's had some clutch catches throughout the season. I don't know. I so you look at that and you look at the fact that on on the plays that we had that would put us in contention late, we went with couple of fade routes to
Yeah.
players that I feel like that we probably would not normally be throwing to. I mean, the lucky one I could understand maybe.
Hmm.
I'm not convinced that that wasn't a bad throw by Gunner, but at the same time, like you're asking a first time starter to throw a fade that's already a low percentage play call in and of itself. And then tack on the fact that it's a first year starter, high pressure situation. Like, can we put our players in a higher percentage play?
Yeah.
Basically put your players in a better position to succeed, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
And then the fade throw to Nitro, like, dude, the guy has caught what, like three passes all season long or something.
Yeah.
Like, I
Yeah.
I don't know. To me, that just seems like an egregious like problem.
Well, I felt like if you're gonna go for it on fourth down because we did. It's four down territory. Like you don't need to get all the yards that you need in that situation, and I feel like that was out there a couple of times. Yeah, I mean on the receiver distribution like that. So I'll throw a bone for Brent Rollins. He had tweeted out like the targets. the targets for receivers in this game, only four receivers were targeted. Dylan Bell led with 11 targets. Then you got Dom Lovett for Arian Smith. That long catch, that was the only time we threw to him the entire game. He had one target. Then Nitro Tuggle, the one target. And then that was it. So we did not target London Humphreys. We didn't target Anthony Evans. And the one for Arian, really weird. Only one target to him. I mean, he's the leading receiver.
That's a, he's the leading receiver. Exactly. He's the
Yeah.
fastest player on the field. Like to me,
Yeah.
it just feels like that we didn't put our best foot forward. It's like it's like when you go into an interview and you're feeling all good about the job, and then you completely bomb the interview. Like I don't know. This to me was just this is where this was the game for me that was a bit of a turning point for me on how I feel about our offense
Hmm.
because I felt that in the past, Bobo has been the unfairly criticized because of the situations that he was put in, because his defenses in the past, when he had failed the most, his defenses in the past failed him when we had just an absolute abysmal defensive situation. So he was pressed to try to perform, and we would score points, but we wouldn't win games. And I felt like that was unfair because the defenses in those time periods sucked. Well, that's why I say like we really, really screwed the pooch on an epic defensive performance and an epic defensive game plan. We completely shut Notre Dame down, and I feel like that is going to be lost to the annals of time. And we just couldn't figure out how to beat this team. And there are other teams throughout all of college football that have less talent that were able to put up more points on these guys.
Yeah.
And these guys were missing their one of their best defensive assets, and we still could only muster 10 points. And we just kept doing the stupid things over and over again. On like when I talk about personnel on the two downs, when we throw the fade routes, when we absolutely had to have touchdowns, those are examples of just errors that you can't make at this level. On top of that, early in the game, the fumble to ETN, we put Anthony Evans on a key swing block for a play when his entire body of work throughout the entire season is such that you do not trust him to actually make that play. Why
Hmm.
don't we have Dylan Bell out there on that hinge point block? Because if he delays that end just a fraction of a second, it allows our running back ETN to get out of the way from a helmet hitting the football.
Yeah.
And then you might not fumble the ball. Maybe you take a loss there. I'm not asking someone to like completely, hold the man up there. Anthony Evans is a small guy, but even if he just gets a hand on him, he may slow him down enough to where the helmet doesn't hit the ball.
Yeah. I feel like if
And
that's Bell or Lovett or Arian Smith, it's a different result on that play.
and like these little personnel things are just the attention to detail and the attention to what's been going on. Like the slow start continued. We only scored 3 points. And I think that when you look at this game and then you saw Bill Shanks send through that message about the slow starts
Ugh.
throughout the entirety of the season,
Yeah.
and you start to it was like an epiphany for me. I was like, oh my gosh, this is an accurate assessment, except this time we couldn't figure out the second half, and there frankly is no reason for us to have not figured out the second half. There's no reason that we should not have figured this out because Notre Dame was not doing jack anyway. Like, yes, they came out and scored. They scored the kickoff return, but that took 2 seconds off the clock. We had the entirety of the second half to figure things out. We
Yeah.
still couldn't do it.
Yeah. All right. A few things. One, I do have to say I'm kind of proud of us for making it this far and not talking about Parker Jones. But I feel like people will be
And
disappointed if we don't at least mention it. Like again, didn't affect the outcome of the game. But that one, like that was on the deep pass to Arian. So that right there, that happens. We get the penalty, and like we still could have scored or whatever, but we were in much better.
you still have it first and 10. You can still
Right. Right. But so there, that's the 3 points right there. Right. So hopefully, maybe we get in seven. You say on the play we talked about at length where ETN fumbled, you would hope that at worst you're getting three out of that. I mean, there was the stuff was there. There's the turnover at downs at the end of the game, like we talked about, where we went through the multiple fades. There was that sequence where like we had a turnover on downs, and then they had a turnover on downs. We had the ball back, and then we had turnover on downs again, including like we line up to go for it on fourth down. We get a false start. Then we line up to
Mm,
punt. Then they jump off sides. So then we get again, and we're like 4th and 2 again, and we still couldn't get it. Like it was those things, like it was those short yardage situations. They were the most frustrating, I think, for me. That like we couldn't figure out a way to get 2 yards in those scenarios. I do have to say too, though, I will say, like honestly, I am I almost feel like their punter was the player of the game. Notre Dame's punter. I mean, he flipped the field multiple times, and that made a big difference. That made a big difference because there were times where we would punt, or they would punt it to us. We were deep in our own territory, wouldn't do anything, and then we punt back to them. Then they're like midfield. They gained some, I don't know, I would say fairly significant yardage off trading punts during the game. He was good. He was good. He lived up to his Australianness, I guess.
yeah, 5 punts, 43 yards average. Two of those punts were inside the 20. And he had the long that was one of those inside the 20 I know was a 50 was it was his long 54 yards.
Yeah, yeah. And then their kicker, they've had kicking problems all year, and he was perfect. Um, I mean, you could argue special teams won the game. I mean,
Oh yeah, special teams and turnovers. Like in a
yeah.
tight game, evenly matched, special teams and turnovers win the game.
I had to look
They
it up. I was like, man, when was the last time there was a kick? Do you know? Do you know? I didn't know. I had to look it up. I could not remember when was the last time Georgia gave up a kickoff return for a touchdown.
I was actually thinking the same thing. Like, man, that like 9 times out of 10, Cash Jones tackles that man.
Yeah, it was. The other thing is too, I was like, okay, so this is fun inside sources. You were texting at halftime like, we need to steal a possession. We need to do an onside kick, and I was like, please no. Kirby's onside kicks never work. Like, just kick it deep, and then like they run it back for touchdown. And I was like, guess we should have done an onside.
I mean, yeah, at that point, like what's yeah.
But I will. I think Drew Butler said that it looked like he just got under the kick. Like it, I think 'cause there
It
was
did
like
not. It was not a design kick. It was
it was
not a design kick short. It
it was
was
not.
not
Yeah.
a. It was not a Fat John Fabris special. We
Dude,
were
I
not doing.
almost you
We were not doing directional
you
kicking.
you can't say stuff like that when I'm drinking my water. I almost spit it out of my monitor. Man. Um.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
speaking to the Parker Jones situation, like I don't know, man. Like that kid has taken such heat, and
Yeah.
looking at the reviews, like I've seen George Foster talk about like the line that you're supposed to be behind isn't actually the white, but like, dude, every game I've ever seen, they're all up on the white. I mean, Kirby literally had a guy whose job was to pull him back, and
Yeah.
that ref went into the green area, man. Like, dude, I don't know. I feel like not. I feel like some of those times they're gonna call that flag and then give it a sideline warning as opposed to an
Uh,
actual penalty. I've never seen the penalty called.
I don't know that I've ever seen it called either, but I can't remember the time I've seen a ref run into
Call,
someone like that either. But I will say there is no such thing as a warning for that. Um, they don't do that. That if you when there's contact with an official there, it's a penalty. Period. There's no like it's not like the sideline warning. It's different.
so when the ref comes out and does the sideline warning,
That is a
like,
different penalty. Correct.
okay.
Yeah. So this is different. So there's like I forget the exact wording because I definitely went down. You know me. I went down like rule book, um, the rule book rabbit hole, and and read up on it. And yeah, it is different. It's not the sideline warning.
Hmm. Yeah, you hate that. Like literally nothing went right for us. All the things that could go wrong went wrong. We lost the turnover battle, gave up a special teams touchdown, gave up a sack fumble inside our inside our own 20. Gave them a short field touchdown. Like, just, if you
Yeah.
don't have anything to offset that, I mean, the game cast showcases that this game was over as soon as that fumble happened, or as soon as they scored after that fumble, I guess is what I should say.
Like that flips. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I didn't really feel like,
It went to 85% after that.
yeah, after that touchdown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it went to 92% after it was 20-3.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I don't know. I felt like we were still in it. Like it wasn't, I don't know. It was a 4 quarter game, I guess I would say. I mean, because it wasn't really like over until the whole fake punt running 11 guys off the field. Um, it was over after that happened. Uh,
Okay, so I'm gonna harp on the coaches for this. Like, as soon as that happened, I was like, call a timeout, call a timeout. Like, this is the time when you want to call a timeout. Like,
yeah.
there's no way that they're going to run this play. Like, they have no incentive to do so, because if they don't get it, then they're giving us life. And we have shown throughout the entirety of the game that we can't do crap. Like, there's nothing. Like, we couldn't get anything going.
Yeah.
So, like, there was no incentive for them to run that play. So I feel like Kirby should have called a timeout and said, guys, whatever you do, we're not jumping off sides.
Yeah. For what it's worth, they false started, but whatever.
Yeah. Like I said, everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. We got refs making calls that they shouldn't be making. We got um calls that they missed or whatever. There was an egregious pass interference call on, I think wasn't it Dylan Bell,
It was
where
Dylan
they
Bell. Yeah.
they threw the pass down the sideline, and even noted Joker that hates the crying about the refs, Chris Marler, was like, guys, what are we doing?
I saw that. I saw that. That was funny. Oh man. Yeah,
So
I agree with
yeah,
you. I agree with you. I think Kirby said post game, like he was like, he's like they're trying to get us to call timeout. Like that's why they're doing that. He's like, so I didn't want to do it. But I don't know. Again, that I feel like that's in the Peach
that's
Bowl,
coaching.
in the Peach Bowl, he called a huge timeout on a fake punt situation. Saved the game. Um, I don't know. I don't know. Them's the bricks, I guess.
I mean, if something goes wrong and they do run the play, or you do jump off sides, like, to me, it's risk reward. It goes back to everything that I've talked about that has gone wrong from an offensive standpoint was just risk reward. Like, all these different calls, like the fade routes, risk reward. Putting
Yeah.
someone out there that can't block, risk reward. Calling an aggressive play call at the end of the half, when you really are in this game and are dominating and showcasing that you can hold these guys. They couldn't do anything on us either.
Hmm.
So you do that risky play again, risk reward on having someone out there that's getting absolutely worked all game long, and you give him no help. Like, risk reward. Like,
Man, we needed man ball Kirby back at the end of the first half. uh, and just run the
seriously.
ball. Would have been. I feel like it would
I
have been
mean,
fine.
I don't hate the fact that he's trying to go after points, but I'm worried that these last two games are gonna, like, haunt Kirby forever. Because there was a period of time when he would not do that, right? Like, he would not go for that stuff.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and we've got this aggressive Kirby that wants to do things, and that's great. I think that we had time to actually get down there. Like, we had more than enough time to get down there to kick a field goal.
Yeah. Yeah. We did.
Um,
We did.
and I don't hate it. I just hate that we, again, just put people out there, and percentages. The percentages were against us on that particular play call.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, man. I would wager to say that if we play this game 9 times out of 10, we're probably winning it 9 times out of 10.
Yeah, I mean, I still feel like, I mean, I didn't see like they didn't do anything offensively that would concern me. You know, we handled them well. Um, I would tend to agree. I will give them credit. I mean, like their defense was definitely better than I thought it was going to be. And they played really well in special teams, and and they've got a good coaching staff. You know, I mean, Freeman pulled out some tricks, and they worked. He was very pleased with himself when they worked too.
Something, yeah, he was. Yeah, the I will say that I before the game I had a lot of respect for Marcus Freeman. I still like Marcus Freeman, but like him doing all the strutting and all that kind of stuff on the sideline, like
Yeah, yeah,
save that for the end of the game. Like Kirby does some of that stuff like at the end of the game after he's gotten a shower of Gatorade.
right, right.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know, man. Usher was definitely happy with himself a couple of times. But I definitely am going to be watching the games as they pan out because it's interesting that there's now going to be a guaranteed black, African American coach that's going to be coaching in the national championship for the
yep.
first time ever because him and it's going to be a showdown between him and Franklin. And I guess if there has to be one person to do it, I would much rather it be uh I would much rather it be Marcus Freeman than James
The
Franklin.
James Franklin. Yeah, yeah. Um, we
It'll be
could.
interesting to see how they do, how they go the rest of the way. I have a feeling that they are going to match up pretty nicely with Penn State, but if they do make it to the national championship and they have to play Texas or Ohio State, that is going to be an interesting matchup because it's going to be a high-powered offense. And obviously, we didn't have a high-powered offense, but I have a feeling that that's going to be a bloodbath. But
I
um,
mean, I feel like it's Ohio
yeah,
State's to lose at this point. Like they
I
are
mean,
playing so well.
for sure, for sure. But I do. There is part of you that wonders, like, okay, is Notre Dame's D? The question that I have still on the floor is Georgia's offense has been all season long, and Notre Dame's defense has been good all season long. Is it because our offense is just crap and we can't figure it out, or is Notre Dame's defense really that good?
Yeah, it's a fair
That's what
question.
I'm that's what I'm that's what I'm wondering. Like against a Chip Kelly offense, against a Steve Sarkisian offense, like what are they gonna do? You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I was just pulling up the times and everything. Why don't we do a little coaches pick 'em briefly on that? So you got Notre Dame, Penn State is in the Orange Bowl. That's tomorrow night, by the way, because we're recording on Wednesday. Thursday night, 7:30. Notre Dame's favored by 1.5. I don't know.
They're
I feel
playing they're playing that game tomorrow?
yeah,
God, I hate everything.
yeah.
Play these games on Saturday, please.
That was the
Ugh.
thing too about this game is like, I mean, I feel like it should not be lost on anyone that Notre Dame had or that Penn State is had basically 2 day head start.
Yep.
That was why they moved the game to be at 4 instead of it originally was going to be 7:45. So I think both coaches were like, the earlier we can play, the better because we want to get rest and get home to get prepped for Penn State. I feel like that is an advantage. Uh, I give the coaching advantage to Freeman though over Franklin. So I guess I'll go with Notre Dame.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Notre Dame on that one too.
Okay. And then Friday night, so the next night, Friday night, 7:30 again. And so this it's interesting to me that they're playing in the Cotton Bowl. I mean, Texas basically has a home game. So you got Ohio State, Texas, but Ohio State's favored by 5.5. Um, I still feel
When
like
is that game taking place?
Friday night, 7:30 Eastern at the Cotton Bowl, in the Cotton Bowl
Where is the Carnival?
in Dallas.
Dallas. So the only thing about that I am curious about is so they're playing that on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
So the only thing about that is so the Miami game, the Orange Bowl, is that inside or is that outside? Either way, it's in Florida. It doesn't really matter. But the
Yeah.
Cotton Bowl, Dallas, it's gonna be 30 degrees. It's gonna be 30 degrees out there for
They're
that
playing
game.
it at it's at like Jerry World.
Oh, it is? Oh,
Yeah,
I thought it was in
the Cotton Bowl is at
I thought it was at the Cotton Bowl.
it's at it says it's AT&T Stadium in Arlington. I think that's isn't that Jerry World?
Yes. That would make sense that they would not have it outdoors, but yeah, that's Jerry World.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I
Yeah. Never mind.
thought. But there could be travel issues getting to the game.
There
Um,
could be. That would be interesting.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, I was just looking at some weather predictions. I mean, Ohio State definitely is going to have they could easily have some issues with travel for sure. I don't know when they
I'm sure they're already there. I meant when I said travel, I guess I meant like fans being able to get to the game. But okay, so let's see.
that too.
I'm gonna go stick with Ohio State though. Who are you gonna go with?
I really want to go with Texas on this one.
Mm.
Basically a home game. Screw it. I'm gonna go against you. Texas.
Okay.
Give me the Longhorns. I made a joke with my client. So I had my Texas client that I have. I had a meeting yesterday with him, and they were like, "Hey JP, I noticed that you don't have any red and black on today. I noticed that your background is not the same either." And I was like, ah. I told him, can you guys just go ahead and win it so that we can say that we beat the national champion twice?
Twice. Oh my gosh. I'm gonna refrain commenting on that further until we do the season review. I have thoughts. Um, on that note, since we did a coach's style pick'em, uh, the over under coaches over under as results for the year are in.
Ah.
My death march was successful. I was able to keep you at arm's length by with both of us going 5-3 in the picks for the Sugar Bowl. So I finish 61-51. You finished at an even 500, 56-56. But as you said, you took the Intercontinental belt by winning the pick'ems for the season.
I took the Intercontinental Championship. Yeah,
So good. By like one pick. By one pick.
I
Uh,
know.
so good. So good. All
I
right.
can't even remember which one it was.
Oh, from the games this week?
Yeah.
Well, this week we both went 1-2. So you basically just like kept the lead. You kept the
Okay.
lead. But we
Okay.
did pick different games because I picked Arizona State to win, and man, they almost did. If Arizona
They
State,
almost did.
if they could have stopped Texas on 4th and 13, or if that targeting had been called, or I'm not saying it should have been. By the way, I'm just saying there were multiple routes for Arizona State, or if they had special teams in the first half. I don't know. That was the best game of the semis or the quarters for sure.
Yeah. Dude, speaking of that game, did you see all of the nonsense that happened with the field goal on that bounced through the uprights and how there was a controversy about how it should have counted?
Yes, it should not have counted. Again, I I
I was
pulled
about to
up
say, give me the Jim Wood explainer.
I pulled up the rule book and searched for that. Dude, it's like literally like the first sentence of like a field goal on like how to score points on a field
Okay.
goal. It says it says if the ball goes through the uprights before hitting the ground. Like it's literally right there. Like the ball cannot hit the ground and then go through the uprights and it count. So
Yeah, I figured it was something along those lines where as soon as it touches the ground, it's basically no good.
yeah, yeah. It's I don't have it up anymore or anything, but I promise it's like in the there's the section of like how to score points on a scrimmage kick or whatever in the rule book, and it says right there, like in the definition of
Wasn't
how to get points. So
wasn't there something else that was kind of weird recently where someone was maybe it was in the NFL where they did like a free kick?
the free kick, yeah, that's always there in the rule book. It's this, and people have attempted free kicks. I've just never. That's the first time I've seen anyone make it. Yeah, so if you do a fair anytime in the NFL at least. I'm actually not sure if this is in college or not. We could look it up. Anytime you fair catch a punt, you can attempt a free kick for a field goal. It's just that usually you're so far away that you won't attempt one. The reason it worked here was he did a fair catch and there was a 15-yard penalty. So it moved it up 15 yards. And so that's why they were close enough to have it actually work.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I have the rule book up and I found it. How scored. Section 4 of Rule 8 of scoring for a field goal. How scored. It says a field goal shall be scored if a scrimmage kick, which may be a drop kick or place kick, passes over the crossbar between the uprights of the receiving team's goal before it touches a player of the kicking team or the ground. I don't know how you can make it any more plain than that. So the Arizona State kick should that conspiracy theory has been debunked.
That would have been an interesting wrinkle. I mean, I
Yeah,
assume that these guys would have, yeah,
yeah,
they would have corrected themselves.
yeah.
But that would have been an interesting outcome. Like, hey, you can actually bounce. You can actually. It's like when you're playing beer pong or something, or in our case, like most recently, my teenager and my wife and I, we had a giant disagreement on rules of Uno,
No,
and how to
nice.
play Uno, like house rules, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like
That's awesome. That's
you could
awesome.
totally, sure, you could totally bounce through a field goal. Like
Right. Right.
if it happens, if it goes to the, it's kind of like a goal. Like doesn't matter how it goes in the goal. It's a goal.
Right. Right. Hey, let's do something happier. You want to have a basketball minute for Fletcher?
Let's talk about basketball, Jim.
Dude.
I had a session today at church this evening, and the guy that was leading, his name's Gary. He he was actually talking about how he was a Kentucky fan. And he's
Mhm.
like, "Who won? Who? I don't even know who won the game yesterday." And I was like, "You know who won?" He goes, "Yes, yes, I know who won."
Oh man, an 82-69 win over Kentucky. Um, what a game! It was awesome. Um, the Dude, I still say like I have not seen the rim shake on a dunk in Stegman Coliseum like that. He's the first one since Sean Coleman that I remember to dunk and have the rim just like continuously shake after it. Uh, it's incredible. I enjoy watching him play, but dude, the whole team, and I was like, we get that big lead at halftime. You got Newell hits the buzzer beater to go up what like 13, I think, at the half. Um, but like it started to go like how the Georgia Kentucky game tends to go. It's like you got a halftime lead, but then they creep back and then they just take over. And they cut it to I think as close they got in the second half was what 5. So that's what was I don't know. I think even more impressive to me is it's like Kentucky goes on this run. They cut the lead to 5. Mike White calls timeout, and the team kind of regrouped and were able to push it back out. And then it kind of hovered around 10 for most of the rest of the game. So it was beautiful. It was beautiful. I'm
It,
sure the
it,
stag was insane.
it was definitely rocking in there at multiple points. I felt like
Yeah.
um, I almost made some memes that I'm probably am gonna hold on to centered around Mr. How do you say it? LeFew?
LeFew. Yeah.
LeFew?
Yeah.
I have some ideas.
Okay. I think,
I'll hold him in my I'll hold him in my back pocket. But dude, I was like, who's this guy? I haven't really heard I hadn't really heard his name that much. I'm sure like for those that have watched all of the games probably do, but dude, he was lighting it up because I
yeah.
watched the whole game.
Yeah, he's been playing. He's been playing. So the funny thing about him is so he and Deshane Montgomery, they're both transferred from the same school. They
Hmm,
both came from Mount St. Mary's, which Crip Dog turned me on to that. He enlightened me on that while they were here over Christmas. So
okay. Um
how about?
Carter
Oh, go ahead.
Carter was asking about Carter's favorite player is Asa Newell,
Yeah.
which we make fun of him, or I make fun of him from the time that he was at last time we went to the game.
Mm.
He refers to him as Asa. He's sorry Cartered himself.
Sorry, Carter himself. I'm not gonna bleed that out because
I'm really
Carter's at it, so
trust,
it's fine.
bro. Every time I say Asa Newhover, he bangs a shot.
It-
Oh,
except
that's
for when
great.
he doesn't.
That's
Except for when
great.
he doesn't.
That's great. Yeah, dude, it was
Who's saying
awesome.
it, like
And then
Asa or something?
I
Like
Sorry,
remember
Carter has joined the
Carter's
chat.
joined the chat.
they've been winning, bro. They beat #6 Kentucky, bro.
We know that's what we're talking about. The basketball minute.
Basketball minute. Um, and then like I
I
remember
told you,
one of
say
our
that.
chats. Somebody was like, "Oh no, are we gonna storm the court? Like, don't storm the court." Uh, and we didn't. Dude, how about Josh Brooks like donating a portion of the savings because we would have had to pay the fine, donated it towards like student promotions. Oh, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I'll have to we'll have to wait and see what those promotions are going to be. Like, is he going to be like is it going to be a jersey that Chase is going to completely destroy?
Yeah. uh, could be. Dude, the student giveaways are nice these days. I remember they were showing it yesterday, like the T-shirt the students were getting on the way in was pretty cool. So, and they have tables now where you can like go and get your size T-shirt. We had no such things. I have promotional shirts back from when we were in college, and they're like double extra large or something. They're huge. I did
Uh,
love in all the post game, like the basketball Twitter writers were actually tweeting about Georgia, and so we appreciated the love from Rothstein. Rothstein finally acknowledged Georgia basketball,
was
and
that the
even you
first
got in on the
time?
joke.
Was that the first time?
No, I mean he's done it before, but he used to have like a victory tweet that he would tweet like whenever it was a Tom Crean thing. So he would say like it was something about like Tom Crean is colder than Tommy Lee Jones and The Fugitive or something like that. And so that was where like Fletcher and Hoops Mafia are always like, "Where's the Mike White victory tweet? Like you need to like come up with something." And he never does it. So that's from my following of that. I think that's kind of where that came from.
Got it.
Yeah, man,
Yeah,
he
I
was like
was
Georgia's legit tournament team. Like that's pretty cool.
yeah, he's talked to he was hype. He was hype.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, this team is fun to watch, man. I keep saying it over and over again, but like I don't know. They have I don't know what constitutes having it in basketball is, but whatever it is, they've got it, I feel like.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree. Good roster, uh, being well coached, and what
Yeah, I
was it?
think the depth is definitely noticeable because I
Yeah,
found myself being like, where the heck is Somto?
yeah, yeah. I mean, he's a reserve. He's a reserve, but
Yeah,
he makes his presence felt. I'll say that.
he does. He
You know,
does. He does.
He was a Kentucky commit. Actually, he originally committed to Kentucky, and then I think when Calipari left or whatever, he decommitted and ended up at Georgia. So happy to have him. I'm sure he had a bit of a chip on his shoulder last night for that.
Right. I see. Does Jaden Newell play? He's listed on the roster.
He's
I assume that's Ace's
that's
brother.
that's Ace's older brother, and he was on the team
Uh,
last year, so he's like a walk on.
oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean he's
Got it.
gotten into games, but he does not play much.
Georgia basketball, man. They're fun. They're fun to watch. The games are fun if you get a chance to go. We went when they played, what was it, South Carolina State or something.
Hmm.
Um, Even that game was fun.
Yeah.
So, but
Uh,
don't go on the court. Don't go on the court. They
yeah.
do
Don't do
not
that.
want you to go on. They do not want you to go on the court.
Don't do that.
Carter and his buddy went down to the court level after the game when
Yeah.
we played South Carolina State. And one of his the little buddy that we had with us, he 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 was like, I'm gonna touch the court. And he stood on the court and this old man comes over and goes, I need you to get off the court. Get off. And he like shoot him.
That's
And
funny.
then they were like, hey, is it okay if we take a picture? And he goes, just as long as you don't touch the court.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, man. Next up, I got Oklahoma coming to the Steg this weekend. Be another ranked team coming in. If Georgia can get through this one with another victory, I would expect Georgia to be ranked next week. So it'd be pretty cool.
I guess I don't understand like what the criteria for getting ranked is. Like if you've got several marquee wins, like at what point do you deserve to be ranked? I don't know.
Yeah, dude, the SEC is tough. The schedule is murderer's row. That's why this win was huge. This win was huge. Coming off the loss at Ole Miss, it's hard to win on the road in the SEC, and I'm happy that that applied to Kentucky at Georgia this week. So that's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I was going to say win your home games against these tough teams.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, that was an extended basketball minute. Um,
It's starting to become the basketball segment, Jim.
nice, nice. I like it. I like it. Let's do programming note. I know, we will do. We tried to, I think, focus just on the Sugar Bowl as far as football goes. This one definitely want to do like a season review, kind of like we always do. Um, I
Yeah,
guess we
there's a
should
couple of
do
things we
that.
haven't talked about that we can definitely
Yeah,
do after the playoff and just kind of do a season recap and talk about in the words of our friends over at Waiting Since last Saturday, the feelings episode.
yeah, we can do that, and we can. Yeah, the portal has gone wild. We didn't talk about any of that stuff. We can talk about that later too. I
The
will.
good news is the longer we hold off on the feelings episode, the more solidified our roster and staff is.
Yeah, true, true, true. Um, Probably do that after the national championship, I guess, so we can do the full season. I don't know. We'll see. Whatever.
We have some other stuff that we can potentially dipping into, but I'll
Yeah,
get to that in a second
yeah,
with you.
yeah, for sure. Cool. Well, not the result that we wanted in the Sugar Bowl. But you know what? In the first 12 team playoff, we made it to the quarterfinal. Um, on the whole, like what if I told you kind of thing? Like being a season, you told me Georgia was going to win the SEC championship and Carson Beck get hurt in the SEC championship. And then, Georgia goes out in the quarterfinal. I don't think I would have had any issue with that. I'd probably say it sounds about right. So kind of
Yeah,
a, but yeah, whatever. It is what it is.
season over, won the SEC. Um,
Yeah.
I would say that this is kind of one of those. This I don't think this is the weakest Kirby Smart team, but it'll be the weakest Kirby Smart team for a while, I feel like.
Hmm. Yeah. 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 And I think, throw 2016 out for sure. But um, I would say this team could probably give 2019 a run for their money.
Yeah.
19 and 20. So
Yep. All right.
cool.
Well, we'll circle back after the national championship, but in the meantime, go dogs.
Go dogs.